Thank you very much, Grace. I'm going to share my screen and I hope you all can see it. Um, I want to thank God for this opportunity that He has given me this evening, once again, to speak to you all. I thank God for Family Hour because I know that many people sometimes do struggle with various things. And so we want to thank God that He can give us that time to be able to speak. I bring greetings from my husband, who is in the next room, listening in and giving me little notes here and there in the chat. So I thank him for that support that he has given me. And I thank God for the saving power. He saved me many years ago when I was in my senior 2. That's many, many years ago. But I thank God that in spite of the fact that I grew up in a home that knew the Lord, my parents were saved as long as I knew them. And they taught us and prayed with us and we knew everything. But I came to accept the Lord for myself in my senior 2 in Gayaza High School. And I thank God for that happened in my life. Now, we do have a family as well. And since we are talking about family, I think we've introduced them so many times, but we never tire to do that. We have 4 grown children. My last born is now 25. And we have 4 grandchildren. So we thank God for that. So we've gone through some of the things that I'm going to be sharing, because conflict management, I've kind of turned it around. There are so many phrases you can use around conflict. It's conflict resolution. Then some people say, well, you don't really resolve conflict, do you? You just manage it. So conflict management. So it's around there, conflict resolution, conflict management, but in the family. So it would be nice to know what are the causes, why conflict management, what is going on. And as I said, I'm going to be focusing mainly on children. But let's see, we have in counseling, we use some terms called family systems and dynamics, because the family is a system and that system has certain dynamics that work in it. So it contains what we call subsystems. We have the spousal subsystem, which comprises of husband and wife. Then we have the parental subsystem, which is that relationship between parent and child. Then we have the sibling subsystem, which is the children. And these subsystems have different levels of power, different skills that you learn while you are there. For example, if you get married, you have to learn the skills of being a spouse. If you get children, you learn. If you get a sibling, you have to learn how to deal with them in terms of power. In fact, my grandchildren, there's the eldest one, she says she's the head of the pack. So she has a different level of power, and then different skills and different responsibilities that are assigned. Some of them are written, some of them come up as we go along, and if each person has different roles. So let me just give examples. For example, the spouse subsystem, you have to have independence from the family of origin in order to form the spousal subsystem. If you don't get that independence from your family of origin, then you can't form this subsystem. And then you have to learn to accommodate each other. You have to adjust. You know, I'm not used to being with you, but now I'm adjusting to you. Then there are negotiation of roles. You do this today. I'm pregnant tomorrow. Maybe I won't be able to do that. You do it for me. Mutual support. There is trust in there. I am an individual as a wife, but also united to you, but I'm unique. Then there is need for communication in this spousal subsystem. We talk about the sexual union, we talk about finances, we talk about work. So when you don't do these things, there is a breakdown, there is a conflict that happens when these things do not work well. There's supposed to be love and acceptance and romance and friendship, and there's supposed to also be sexual delight. Now, when we get to the parental subsystem, this is where we are learning how to raise children. I remember when I gave birth to my firstborn, Sarah. It was such a delight. It was painful, but it was such like, wow, there's a little being that is in my hands. Now, how do I start taking care of her? So adjusting. Then soon after, 2 years later, I got another child. And then 4 years later, I got another one. And 4 years later, I got another one. You know, I have to adjust. And I was at different seasons every time I got a child. We got a child with my husband. So we have to adjust. One was quieter, another one was more difficult, another one was crying more, another one, you know, so it depended. You had to adjust. And then on top of it all, we have to maintain the spousal subsystem, because some people, when they get into the parental subsystem, they throw out the spousal subsystem. And, you know, they say, oh, I'm taking care of the child every time, the child, and they forget that they have to take care of the spouse as well. So there's also mutual support. And then who is in charge? You find that some families, the authority has changed. The children are in charge instead of the parent. So those are subsystems. We have also the sibling subsystem. This is where the child gets their first peer group, you know, and in most cases, this is where the physical and emotional conflict in the home happen, because they are very, very close. You know, that's a picture of Sarah's children when they were still young. Now they are 9 and 7, but then they were so young. Beautiful, beautiful grandchildren. And but these are their peers. So they develop patterns of negotiation, cooperation, competition, mutual support, attachment. Okay, and these skills, these patterns of negotiations are the ones they're going to use when they go in school or when they grow up. So it is so important that this sibling subsystem is also working well, because we find that there are some children that have been abused by their siblings. I got a case some time back of a young man who had been so badly abused by his elder brother. So badly abused, and yet the parents didn't even know. And it had traumatized him. He had become so angry because of what his brother had done for him. He didn't know how to negotiate with him. He didn't know how to talk to him. He didn't know how to cooperate with him. There was a lot of conflict in there. So then you ask, what is conflict? We need to also understand what it is. It's sharp disagreement or opposition. Sometimes they have different words: arguments, clashes, fights, debates, inconsistencies that happen within the families. And when I mention that, of course, immediately you think, in my subsystem as a spouse, yes, we have those clashes. As a parent, yes. I remember one time, when Kampala parents was separating from city parents. Some of the parents might remember that our children were in P6 and P7, then our first and second born. And, it was so many parents got into clashes around, should we stay in Kampala parents? Should we go with city parents? So it can happen at any stage. Conflict also is striking together, or when you have conflicting opinions, conflicting ideas, interests, or demands, and the conflict can be over space. Do we live here? Do we stay here? Is it my room? Is it your room? Which side? Whose bed? Is it materials? Is it friendships? All right. So a verse in James 4 says, what causes conflicts and quarrels among you? Do they not spring from the aggressiveness of your bodily desires? Do you want something which you cannot have? And so you are bent on murder. You are envious and cannot attain your ambition. Just move this a bit. You cannot attain. So you quarrel and you fight. You do not get what you want because you do not pray for it. Or if you do, your requests are not granted because you pray from wrong motives. So it talks about what is it that is causing the quarrels among you. And you can see it's because sometimes something which we cannot have, we are bent on actually getting it. You can see the land cases that come. Someone wants that piece of land. Okay, and so what happens? They go and murder that person so that they can steal that piece of land. They kill their parents to get their property. It's getting so bad. So the causes are out of what we want. Sometimes we call it opinions. What is it that I want? I want. It's my opinion. I don't care what you think. And so it causes a clash because the other person also has their opinion. Sometimes it's what we believe. I believe this is what is supposed to happen. This is what I believe. So when I go in a certain religion or a certain cult, this is what I believe. And you have no right to tell me what I should not believe. Then desires, the causes, is because of what we want. And then priorities, or what we value. Then around emotions, this is what I feel. Right now, when you said that, I felt abandoned. I felt rejected. I needed attention. I wanted affection. I needed acceptance. You didn't give it to me. I mean, think about it all. You know, sometimes your spouse is not exactly giving you all these things and you feel isolated. You feel he didn't give you attention. He didn't look at you. You had a new hairstyle. He didn't take care of it. He didn't think of you. He didn't talk to you. And then can also come out of how we see things, that is perspective. And then after we have clashed, this is what we feel. This is what the reaction is. Sometimes we focus on how much I have been wronged. We have become so self-centered because of the pride. I wanted my way. I want my way. I didn't get my way. Then sometimes we rehearse their faults. We go on and say, yes, you're such a terrible person because of that. So fault finding, we find faults, especially after conflict. Why didn't you? I remember there's a time when we used to call it intellectual conversations. So you come up and you want to say, I'm sorry, but then you said, if you had not done that, I wouldn't have done this either. So you are finding fault with the other person and blaming them for what happened. Avoidance, sometimes we just run away from those with whom we have conflict. Sometimes we are silent. We refuse to talk. We refuse to share the feelings in a healthy way. And then sometimes we just withdraw emotionally. Sometimes we just become unfaithful. You know, we might want to start sharing unnecessary information with our workmates concerning our spouses, concerning our children. Some of you share very unnecessary information to the whole world, you know, on Facebook, on what my child, imagine my child did this. And, you know, that's unfaithful to your family. And or we share unnecessary emotions. You go crying to your boss, and then the boss doesn't know what to do. He wants to hold you. He doesn't know whether to hold you. He doesn't know what to do with you. Sometimes it's even physical parts of our body. That is infidelity, or, you know, that is having sexual sex with someone else. That's unfaithfulness. So it's not only physical, but it also can include sharing information or sharing emotions. And sometimes we feel a sense of hopelessness. This is after the conflict. And it's not a nice feeling. Nobody wants to feel all those things. So we don't really like conflict. And then the consequences are not nice. Sometimes there is no communication. We wound hearts. Sometimes trust is lost. Sometimes there's so much outburst emotionally. People are quarreling. I think you've had people quarreling in their houses. They want to beat up each other, and then they lose commitment. The families are broken. Some people walk out. You know, in my counseling room, this is what happens. That's what I hear. You know, people coming and say, I left. I couldn't handle that conflict. There was no way. We are incompatible. So it has got to that level of people walking out of their homes and saying it was not possible. And then the sexual sin due to resentment also is a consequence, can cause you get other children out of another woman or another man because you didn't resolve a conflict. Yeah. However, it's important that we normalize conflict. We usually in counseling, we say we normalize things so that people know that these are things that are normal. There is no family that has no conflict. Conflict is actually a part of a normal relationship. If you have no conflict, then you must be telling lies, or there must be something wrong with you. I remember going to a funeral one time of a saved man, Bazook, very saved man. And his wife stood up to speak. And his wife said, you know, since we got married, I think it was 40 something years ago, I've never made this man late in anything. And I'm like, oh, that cannot be true. 40 years? Maybe. And I said, maybe it is me who has a problem, because my husband cannot say that about me. I've made him late so many times for his services. For me, I have. And so it brings conflict. And so it's a normal part of a relationship. It's a natural, everyday, constant occurrence. I don't know how well I can underline that. It is nothing out of, it's not out of this world. And it's not always a sign of failure that the family cannot handle, but the family is real. The thing that's why I changed the resolutions to management, that the family is able to manage. The conflicts are there, but the family is able to manage them, so that we do not aim to being mean and hurtful and abusive and what, but manage the conflicts that come. So the conflict can be between siblings, it can be between those children and their parents, or it can be between husband and wife, or it can just be, you know, with other relatives. But right now we are handling that little family, the siblings, the husband, the parents, the wife. Okay. So the importance of conflict, it strengthens the child's self-esteem and social skills. If a child goes through life without conflict, they will not have self-esteem. They will not have social skills. So that's normalizing it. Children that manage conflict are happier, they have better relationships and learn better in school. So we need to know how to manage, help our children manage. And they are needed to maintain healthy family relationships and improve communication. So we have to help the child to discover ways of handling conflict, because it has a long-term benefit. But when conflict is mishandled, it can cause stress, it can harm, it can cause distress. It can build up resentment and anger in the family and among the children, and it can also cause emotional and physical abuse. I already told you about the young man who, you know, for many, many years, I think right now he's coming into his 40s, but for many years, he has built up resentment and anger because of unresolved conflict in the family. And we are going to really focus on children, some of the things that bring about conflict in the home. So when we talk about conflict resolution, it is where formally or informally, two or more people find a peaceful solution to their dispute, to their clash, to their disagreement. A peaceful solution. Now, that's why I didn't want to call it so much of a resolution, because why? Sometimes there's no resolution that comes. So these are the common children conflicts in the home. Sometimes there is aggressiveness, aggressive behavior. There is fighting. I can't forget how we used to fight with my brother Enoch. He's the second born and I'm the third born. But he used to come and beat me up, and he was very, very strong. So sometimes just out of nowhere, he would just come and hit me on the back. And so I had to learn to fight back, you know? So sometimes there is aggressive behavior. Sometimes there are temper tantrums. I think temper tantrums. I think you've seen kids who are in the shop and they want sweets. So they say, sweet, I want a sweet. If you don't give me a sweet. And then they scream, and then the mother pulls out the sweet and says, here, 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 here. Because they don't want conflict, so they quickly cover it up. When you are denied your wants, the conflict can come. We're going to look at some of the ways we need to handle these things. Then we have what we call attention-seeking related behaviors. I'll be explaining each one of these as I go on. Then there are those that are chores related. They don't want to do their work. You are given a job. You are given maybe to clean the fridge or clean the house, clean the floor, wash the dishes, and they don't want to do that. Then there's those related to sibling rivalry. You know, my sibling is better than me, I have to prove, or my sibling is worse than me, or mommy loves my sibling better than me, and we need to work on that. Some are sleep related. There are children who do not sleep. You know, I got concerned one time when I got a client in P7, and P6 actually, and she was not sleeping. Why? Because the school was not allowing them to sleep. They would go for prep until 11 p.m. P7, 11 p.m. and then wake up at 3 a.m. to bathe. They have to wait in line to bathe. 4 a.m. they're in class, up to 6. Then they have a short break for 15 minutes. So it was sleep related. The child was not sleeping. Eventually, she just collapsed. And when they took her to hospital, there was nothing they could see, but it was sleep related. Then the differing developmental stages. You have children that are older and children that are younger. Those development stages also bring a lot of conflicts in the home. It could also be around eating. It could also be around crying. Some children love whining. It could also be competitive related. Competition, I am better, he's better. And it could also be teen related. So I'm just going to go around that. I won't even go into adult related because there are issues, for example, on land. A child is 40 years old and he's killing his father because of land, but I'm not going to go in that direction. I'm only going to stop at teens. So let's look at the contributing factors for each of these things that I've mentioned. And one of them is seeking parental attention. So if a new child, for example, is brought, or there's marital disharmony, or there's a new environment, school or house, or there's a new development stage, a baby has just come in, or a toddler has just become 2, or an adolescent has just become 13. These, most cases, seek attention. So they'll do anything to seek attention. A new child is taking up all the time of our parents, and we must see what to do. So the possible remedy, I've put some remedies, assign some individual attention to each child regularly. You know, so take them out, take a date and sit with them alone, take time and put them on your lap just for them alone. If the baby is sleeping, sit them on your lap. If it's an adolescent, take them out and have some tea with them. Okay, so there are bonding activities, dates, waking up, going to sleep. Go with them and read them a story when they are going to sleep. At mealtime, look at them and let them be special. This would definitely reduce or manage the conflict. Know your child. Do you know what your child wants and needs? Some of you are so wrapped up in your favorite children, in the baby, in your spouse, and you are not really looking out for these children. So look out. These are just remedies to manage. Some of you don't know why your children are in conflict. Then comparisons. You know, I'm comparing, he's so much stronger than me. He's so much skilled than me. You know, and you parents know this one is a doctor when you are introducing, and this one, you say, I don't know what they are, because you don't like what they are. So you are comparing their accomplishments. You are comparing, this one loves to eat, this one doesn't love to eat. So every time you're saying, oh, Patrick, you're such a good eater. Why don't you eat your food? This one is, you know, and you bring conflict in the home between them. Remember the favoritism that came up over Joseph. He was given a new coat and he was sold as a result of favoritism. And they told the father that he had died. Can you imagine those big men being jealous? Even Cain and Abel, it was an issue of jealousy. So watch out for jealousies and don't be the parent who is bringing jealousy in there. So avoid favoring one child over the other. Recognize their individual achievements. Each of my 4 children is different from another. And you don't compare them. You know, it's very important that each one is recognized for what they can do. So provide choices. For example, if they're picky eaters, provide healthy choices. What are the choices that he has to have? Give them an opportunity to serve food for themselves, because sometimes we pile food. I was a very, very horrible picky eater, and I hated anyone who forced me to eat. So I do that for my grandkids, and I'm like, Bambi, don't force them to eat. You give them choices. Let them decide. They have to choose this, and it's up to them to finish that food. So possible remedies. Then invasion of privacy. When we invade they need their personal space, especially in teenagers. Okay, they need to protect private property. Your children, give them that space. You can't just walk into a teenager's room and start looking into their suitcase or in their things. No, you might find a letter that was written to him by his girlfriend or someone who admires him. Then you start quarreling. Then you start beating him. No, you are invading his privacy. First tell him, oh, I'm coming around. I want to look around your room. Okay? Give them their privacy. So provide a closet, provide a suitcase, provide a box that is their own property, and they can keep their things in there. So teach them, this is actually teaching them to respect others' property. You just can't walk in my room and do whatever you want. Even if I am 10 years old, I need to be told that I'm coming in and I'm going to check in your stuff. Okay, so, and also recognize the hierarchy. Then birth order is another thing that contributes. I know I'm running out of time. Birth order, you know, each youngest is usually manipulative and charming and blames everyone but not himself. He's a show-off. The middle child is usually a mediator. You know, he has very few photos. The photos were taken with the eldest. The middle child is almost forgotten. And then the firstborn is usually, or the only child is usually a perfectionist, very reliable. And I have a chart that shows these things. I don't know if you'll be able to see that chart, but it's very interesting when you see the child's characteristics because of their birth order. You know, that's how you can manage some of the conflicts that come. Okay, so if it's an only child, the parents have no previous experience and they can be overprotected and they can be spoiled. And if you are the eldest, you are usually dethroned by the next child. So they have to learn to share. They give away their clothes. They are often given responsibility and expected to set up an example. So sometimes, you know, they are struggling in their heart. Why is it me who has to take care of these 3 children or these 4 children? Why isn't my mother doing A, B, C, D? The second usually has a pacemaker. He looks at the oldest and is like, wow, there's someone ahead I can copy. The middle is usually sandwiched in. They may usually feel squeezed out. The youngest has many, in fact, many fathers and mothers. The older children are educating him and he's never dethroned. I remember my eldest keeps saying that they contributed a lot to the youngest, and that's why he's very, very bright. Why? Because they taught him, they told him, they've given everything to him that they didn't get. And then the twins, there's also sometimes some struggle between the twins because one sometimes is stronger, is more intelligent, and some of the parents may see one as the older. So there's always that sibling rivalry. So this is really like around, around birth order, yeah? So you need to look at that. Sometimes the birth order also brings a lot of conflict. Then oppression. Older children tend to be very physically aggressive. They are stronger. Like I told you of my brother, he would come and just beat me. And so I became protective over my younger brother to protect ourselves from the older brother. Now, sometimes some others cannot protect themselves, and sometimes the parents don't protect the children. So protect from physical abuse, protect from emotional abuse, but avoid getting involved in every conflict, because they're supposed to work things out. So like my daughter sometimes tells them, go into the bedroom and sort yourselves out. When you have finished sorting yourselves out, you can come back, and I don't need to know how you sorted yourselves out. It's important to give them remedies like that. So give love, give acceptance, give fairness. Sometimes we are not just. So some children may seek to escape because of punishment or injustice or confusion. So discourage those who come and tell you, this one has done this one has done this one has done that. They're always telling. You should avoid people coming to always tell you what has been done. So it's important to discourage tale-telling, because sometimes it leads to injustice. Find out for yourself. Call everyone and say, okay, let's sit in a courtroom and see what has been done. Go and resolve it. We teach them how to do that. There are also areas around no rules. Sometimes we shift boundaries and confuse children. Today it is this, tomorrow it's another boundary. So it makes them insecure. So they cry and they whine. So establish clear guidelines and boundaries for your children. This is what happens. We sleep at this time. This is what happens about sharing. This is what happens at meal times. This is what happens if the older brother says this, please do it. If mom says that, please. So they need to have clear guidelines, and insist that the child articulates their wants in words, and also explain why they cannot have it. Sometimes you even have to say, tell me why you cannot have that, and listen to them. You can't have it because, so that they know. They stop crying instead. Other things that are contributing factors, when there are parental disputes, when there's no lack of there's no unity in disciplining the children. So I'm disciplining and you're saying, why are you beating my child? So it causes conflict in the home. Differing rules. When mom is around, this is what happens. When dad is around, this is what happens. So we should have things that work together. I'll go for about 5 more minutes, if you can excuse me. Now, how do we work out the conflict? There are people who escape. They run away, they deny, they blame. There are those who attack. They put you down with cruel words, and it could be even the siblings among themselves. And there's gossip and fighting. And then there are those who resolve. This is what we want you to happen. We want you to discuss it. We want you to face it. We want you to work through it. Sometimes it also needs overlooking it. But this is what I really love, the 5 A's of resolving conflict. 1, teach your children, but they should also see it as an example from you. Admit where you are wrong. Here I was referring to Psalm 51. And Psalm 51 admits that they were wrong. Okay, I know my transgressions, verse 3, and my sin is always before me. This is what we do when we are in front of God. We admit, and against you I have sinned. I am wrong. So teaching your children, teaching yourself. I mean, I should have started probably with couples, but now it's like teaching your children how to admit that they are wrong. So what did you do? This is what I did. I admit I'm wrong. So what do you do after admitting? You say, I apologize. I repent, like that. Cleanse me, Lord. Create in me a pure heart. Accept that I did wrong. Apologize or repent, and accept the responsibility that, yes, I was the one who took the sugar. I am sorry. I repent. I accept that. So the next 2 days, I am not going to take sugar in my tea. because I've accepted the responsibility, and I ask you to forgive me, and I will not do it again. That's where we want to go. We don't want them to always be in doing something wrong forever and ever. So that is the 5 A's. So our role as parents, in this case of children, siblings, subsystem, rivalry, and conflict, we need to demonstrate and model healthy ways of conflict resolution skills. We need to limit the number of no's. You know, we say, no, 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 don't touch that. No, no, no. Instead, teach them what to do. Offer encouragement and guidance. Offer other choices. If they are fighting for the yellow pen, you get an orange pen. You take the yellow pen, take the orange, or offer other choices. Instead of saying, you, okay, play with the pen, don't touch it. So offer other choices. And then consider what development stage are they in. If it's a 2-year-old, you can't expect a 2-year-old to sit still in the church for 2 hours. Okay, so consider that. Too much sitting or waiting for a toddler may not be the same as a teenager. Provide consistency, have clear rules. I'm now running through them because of time. Remain neutral, avoid taking sides, avoid favoritism. Provide the child with the rest that they need. They need to sleep, so switch off their light. Even if they say, I don't want to sleep, I don't want, but you know that a child who has not slept, who is not sleeping well, will be grumpy. There'll be more conflict because they didn't sleep. Switch off the TV, get some quiet time. Now, when we come to the teenager, remember the teen is thinking differently. So I think I won't go into that teen because of time. I'm going to end there, and maybe another time we shall listen into whatever else we have to say. So I want to stop and say, ask you, how well are you doing as a parent in your subsystem in managing conflicts in your family? Look at your children and say, who am I favoring? Who always comes whining and I always listen to them? In fact, I had a client at one time who told me that for me, they never used to listen to me. They used to always listen to the other person in my family, my older brother or my younger sister. And so I never got to get a hearing. I'll never be believed. And I was always blamed for whatever was happening. So what are you doing to aggravate the conflicts in your family? And what do you need to improve on? If you understand some of the places where these things are coming from, then it helps. So seek help if you need to. We shall have a series of talking about these conflicts, and may God bless you now.